So, if somebody is preparing for first attempt to now, and say somebody is to appear 2025, incidentally we are in May 24 now. So, what will be your broad suggestion and outline that how they should pursue? Because you prepared your GS on your own. So, how do you suggest people should go about things?
So keeping these two in mind, I made my own Excel sheet and started seeing what is my number of attempts, what is the correct accuracy ratio in this, am I improving as per test, and which area am I not getting good marks. And it's an 80-20 rule, like we will be able to cover 20% of the syllabus and score 80% of the marks, but the rest 20% of the marks need a lot more.
And it was normal, smooth flowing interview? There was no grilling and all happening?
Sir, in fact, towards the end, they even asked, like my hobby happens to be music, so they even asked me to sing in the end.
Good evening, all of you. Welcome to Toppers Talk. We are here to discuss the strategies with K N Chandana Jahnavi. She is from Hyderabad and she has qualified this exam 3 times. So first time it was Indian Corporate Law Service and next it was IRS. Or is bar she has scored 50th rank and she is here to share with us many vital things, how to prepare for prelims, what can be the focal points, also how to prepare while doing job, and how to make it comparatively more feasible, because she has been preparing, taking her job also and her training. And then how did she go for between prelims and mains strategy, and how was the interview session? So welcome Chandana, very happy to see you here.
Thank you so much, sir.
So we'll begin from the beginning, Chandana. First thing, that how did you start preparing? I mean, you are an engineer and you were working with Deloitte. So how did it come to your mind that civil services should be an aspiration?
Sir, there are 2 parts to it. The first part is I've had family inspiration. My grandfather served in the IAS. Right. So I've had a bit of inspiration at home, but I did not think about it until I completed my master's in business administration. Right. And post that worked in private sector and understood for myself what is my expectation out of a job, which is to have a job satisfaction, to deliver something and be able to see the results. Right. So these 2 combined led me towards civil services, and so I started preparation a few months into my job. So that is how it began.
Okay, perfect. So when you took your first attempt, that must have been with the private sector job that you were doing. So how tough was it? How did you plan? What was your strategy?
Sir, again, here there are 2 parts to it. The first part was, yes, it was difficult considering I had long hours. Right. But I also got a significant advantage. It was a very sad situation of COVID, but at the same time, because of it, the exam postponed by almost 5 months. The exam that was supposed to be in June, it went almost up till October. So I had like extra months to give in and prepare. Because of those few months, I was able to cover a lot more of the syllabus and practice a lot more mock papers, which helped me clear my first prelims.
Right. Just interrupting you there. So that means 2020 was your first attempt.
Yes, sir.
So did you start preparing 2019 onwards? Like it was?
May 31st, 2019 is the first day I started preparing.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. So it was 1 year and then you got 5 months because of unfortunate pandemic and all. Right, right. So if somebody is preparing for first attempt to now, and say somebody is to appear 2025, incidentally we are in May 24 now. So what will be your broad suggestion and outline that how they should pursue? Because you prepared your GS on your own. So how do you suggest people should go about things?
So again, I would want to keep it very crisp.
Yes.
So the first thing I did was to start with NCRTs. Okay. So to pick NCRTs of polity, history, economics, and a little bit of science and tech also. Okay. So I took these textbooks and even geography. So these textbooks, I read them at least 2 times in the first 1.5 to 2 months. Basic NCRTs. And focused on reading 3-4 times with the 11th and 12th just to get an understanding of the keywords. Right. The second part is moving into the key textbooks for each subject, which is just having 1 book, which was, I spent 1 month completely on just reading Lakshmikant, and then 1 month on reading only Spectrum multiple times. For modern history, I relied, for other history, I relied on 11th and 12th textbooks. So these were the basic standard books that I went back to multiple times. So once I finished this, I took almost up till November, December, and also optional was continuing in the background. By December, I realized, okay, I have significantly done a lot of material. That is the time I started doing third thing, mock papers. Okay. So I started solving a lot of mock papers. But my idea here was to have a statistically different set, which was to have free papers that were available in the market from different coaching centers, at least 6-7 different coaching centers, and to attempt them. The fourth thing was then to try previous year questions of the last 4-5 years. So keeping these two in mind, I made my own Excel sheet and started seeing what is my number of attempts, what is the correct accuracy ratio in this, am I improving as per test, and which area am I not getting good marks. This was an analysis component of it, and I also used to make an error log out of these tests. So ultimately, by the end of it, for every attempt, almost I had 100 mocks that I finished, which was in the last 100 days. Every day, one paper, and spending 2 hours on making an error log and revising it the next day. And I used to scientifically calculate what is the optimal amount of questions I should attempt, be it 87, 88. I should arrive at that number, and I used to become very confident seeing that Excel sheet on the last but one day.
Okay. So this was around 2019-20 phase that you did things, right? And how much then time you could devote to study given that you were in a job? So how did you manage the day in that sense?
So my office shift was 11 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Okay.
And it could go above and beyond that, but it didn't start earlier. So I always used to have the morning 5 o'clock to 10 o'clock slot, which was the most optimal slot for me. And my breakfast or anything would also keep going on with whatever I was studying. And I used to have a transit hour, which was 10 to 11. And then while coming back also, those hours also I used to optimize. But while moving, I would prefer listening to something instead of reading. Right. So there are some online available YouTube resources of modern history or Lakshmikant, which I read. So which are audio books sort of mechanism.
So you can
keep listening or something instead of continuous reading. So 5 to 10 was my optimal slot, then 10 to 11 and whatever travel time, and lunch was something I used to use for revision, any revision material, whatever I've read 5 to 10 or what I read the previous night, anything like that. Right. And optional, I used to watch my optional videos in office breaks or anything like that whenever I got time.
Okay. And between prelims and mains, ideally, what would you suggest? How much break should be taken? Because normally, I suggest the students that they should not be taking a long break and all, and one should not wait for the results to come. But then, ideally, what would you suggest? Because I know prelims is exhausting, but then how much break? And then, what was your strategy? How would you go about it?
So, in the first attempt, I waited the entire time till the result came, which was 19-20 days, and I regret it today. But I think a break is needed. So that break must be so optimal that it could be 5-6 days. And in those 6 days also, people can think about ethics or essay. They are not exhausting on the mind, and you could broadly think about, okay, seeing an essay topic to creatively think on what can I write. You don't have to keep writing or keep reading anything, but pick a topic or even ethics paper. Some of the case studies can be very interesting, as in not thinking it from a syllabus point of view, but to think in a very free flow sort of a mind. Yeah, but 2-3 hours. I do not suggest them to do 8 hours at a stretch, because that is not sustainable. The first 1 week after that, they can take 2, 3, 4 days of completely not doing anything. After that, they can start picking up essay and ethics, and after the result come, then they can plan how do they want to do their optional or GS. And for some people who haven't touched optional at all in the last 2-3 months, maybe in this, after those 4-5 days, touching the optional ones, just glancing, I do not even tell them to read it, but just glancing the material will also help.
Will help, right. And how much relevance to qualifying papers? Like yours was Sanskrit, so how much relevance should be given to qualifying papers?
So according to me, language paper is very important. A lot of people might be able to speak it, read it and everything, but we at some stage have lost touch with it, because we do not regularly write in a Devanagari script for Hindi and so on.
Especially Hindi, Sanskrit and
yes,
all.
Sir.
Yes.
So I think practice is bare minimum, and I, for all my 3 attempts, used to give at least 100 hours towards that paper also. So my broad strategy was, whenever some Sundays when I am not able to study anything, I would pick Sanskrit, and the idea was to take the GS syllabus and get those exact translated words, because we will be easily able to use them in any part of it. The second was, during that optional period, we are only reading optional, so in that 1 week we should be able to devote at least 1.5 hours towards doing basic things like reading comprehension. That's 100 marks in almost every paper. So solving those at least 2-3. So basically, to get to that 80 marks also, we need to put in some basic effort.
And maybe it can be a good change also, that because when you are studying day in and day out, I think that becomes quite tedious, right? And in your second attempt, you were already in the services. So as you said, you were training there. So along with training, how tough, how easy it was? What is your take? How did you manage that then?
So according to me, the difficulty is in bringing a balance, because most of the times we do not have the number of hours that we need,
Right.
that we get normally if we are not doing anything else. But at the same time, we can manage it. Be it we have lot of breaks, be it tea breaks. They're smaller breaks, so we could utilize them optimally, revising notes and so on, and
Right.
planning the morning and the evening part, which I took from my previous experience.
Right. Plus, after one attempt, you are well versed.
Well versed. That is
has
also
to be
true,
done.
sir. Yes, sir.
Right. Right. And between mains and interview, uh, I mean, after mains, I know it's deep exhaustion. So you actually don't feel like doing anything for at least a month or so. But then after that, how do you suggest what should one do to start picking up? I know prelims may become a little more untidy because you know that I have done it and you go about. So reading books, or what was your method? What would you do?
So in my second attempt, I was giving forest services exam. So
Okay.
those 2 months I utilized for
that.
studying for that.
Right.
But if I wasn't giving it, I thought I would work on my optional paper. So maybe I would take a 15-20 day complete break and not do anything.
Right.
But I think on a 21st day, people should go back to their optionals, because the exam is dicey. Even for me today, I'm at 50, but a 5 marks could have made me go and write the examination again.
Right.
So even this attempt, I decided after my third mains was over, I decided I'll spend some time on my optional.
Right.
So I took some material like IGNOU material, whatever I did not read previously, and try to improve my content, because every attempt I'm seeing people are bringing in a lot more diversity in their optional
Yes.
content. And it's an 80-20 rule. Like we will be able to cover 20% of the syllabus and score 80% of the marks, but the rest 20% of the marks need a lot more, 80% of syllabus coverage. So I would have spent more time on that, but people can also see what they have lagged in their previous attempt with their
Very
scorecards,
correct.
and spend some time till the result comes on one of the subject. It doesn't have to be intensive 8 hours, but start slow with 2-3 hours and slowly gradually utilize that time.
Right, right. Keep picking up. In any case, there is no point being in, even when if the interview call comes, is what I think, that when interview call comes, if you're completely out of synchronization, then it becomes more difficult.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And in your third attempt, you were in the IRS. So, what was the interview like? Was it based a lot on your services? What was your interview experience this year?
Sir, this year I had Dinesh Dasa sir's board, and my interview revolved a little on income tax in general, about how do we improve tax compliances. And the second part was about corporate tax rates. Is it advisable that India keeps cutting corporate tax rates in the interest of bringing in more companies, while it is not really helping? They were talking about a very analytical perspective of the last 4-5 years. What are we seeing? Are we seeing a trend? The third part was about how I lived in different cities. They wanted me to compare each city on urban planning, like one specific issue, and what would I do about it. Like they wanted it like in a point format.
Okay.
So I lived in Bangalore, Hyderabad, Ranchi, Indore, and Manesar. So they wanted me to do an analysis of that. And the next part, one question was on my train route to Ranchi, which had 5 different stations.
Right.
They told me, if you are a rail master, tell me one bad area in each of these stations. Just that, like one bad thing that you think has to improve at any cost.
Right.
And I had one more question, I think was a test of compassion. They said they said street children, according to them, were a big headache, and they thought it was a bigger issue with respect to ethics than a lot of people making it about children and everything, and we need to stop it and give us policy measure, understanding that any policy measure that you suggest will have an impact of flow of children from other neighboring states. So that was one of the questions.
Okay. Okay. And it was normal, smooth flowing interview. There was no grilling and all happening.
Sir, in fact, towards the end, they even asked, like my hobby happens to be music, so they even asked me to sing in the end. So I believe it was in a very smooth manner.
Right, right. And now next prelims is a month away. So what would be your suggestion? How should people plan their prelims now? I mean, of course, I'm expecting that serious candidates must have covered their basics and some test series they must have taken. So last 1 month, what should be the basic strategy, general strategy?
So I will talk like someone, like how if I had to go give my prelims in 1 month, what I would do. The first thing is I would take out my books, whatever I have marked, all the static books, read them, revise them. That is it. I will not touch anything else. After I do at least 2-3 readings, that is when I will touch current affairs. Like I will broadly look through the news about from that. A third thing is I would do I'll keep doing test series, because I think that helps me keep in touch with the mode of examination, but at the same time I will remember the previous year questions. I'll keep glancing them, or sometimes while eating I'll just see a previous year question just to register what were the kind of questions that came in the last 2-3 years.
And CSAT?
And CSAT.
Right.
Yes, sir. So for CSAT, my idea would be to again do a lot of mocks and here concentrate on a question type instead of a whole broad area like a number system. I'll probably deep dive into one type of question like a divisibility by 7 or 6 and practice a few 4 or 5 questions if I'm getting it wrong multiple times. And for reading comprehension, again, I would solve all the previous year questions and keep a UPSC key opposite me and check how my answers are tallying and where am I specifically going wrong.
Right.
So this would actually help me for CSAT. But if people should notice their mock scores, if they think they're getting in 60s and 70s constantly, that is when they would have to do a lot more practice before they...
Right, because CSAT has been a touch and go thing. Just one more thing I would like to know, that last year there was a surprise in the prelims exam slightly. So if suppose you see the, one thing I would tell you, my view is that every year they give you some surprise or the other, but last year it was a bigger one. So how do you adjust to that situation? What was your strategy in the exam hall? And what was the adjustment process? That okay, you go with some ideas in the mind surely and then you suddenly see something happening. So did you in the exam hall fear them that okay, I can go for a little less cutoff because this paper looks a little different? What was going through your mind?
So I do not think I really adjusted or anything. I think I saw the questions and I think there were 46, 47 type of questions which were only 1, only 2, only 3.
Right.
So there it became more about accuracy over elimination. But what I was prepared for was elimination. So I think I went ahead with the same strategy and I think I'm going to be on a borderline of clearing. So that is not something that people should aim for. So if they see such kind of questions where UPSC is testing accuracy, they must remember that every student is facing the same issue.
True.
So then the idea is to reduce the number of guesses that you are making. It is not like elimination by 50% may come correct. There is a higher chance that things will go wrong.
Right.
So in those cases, if I were to go this time, I would make sure that I cut the number of questions I attempt. If I was attempting 87, 88, I'd probably come to 80. I mean, I would not drastically cut it, but I'll reduce the number of guesses I'm doing.
I agree, because and then looking at 75 as the cutoff, one would believe that maybe even 80 questions would be sufficient to qualify. Right. So that has to be an internal adjustment in the exam hall, isn't it? And I agree with you that within the exam hall, it's very difficult to think over and do things. Then you are in a flow and then a lot of racial memory kicks in and it goes on. Fair enough. Now, just one more thing there. Regarding your optional, sociology was your optional. So, what would you suggest should be a good strategy that if one wants to go for sociology optional, what can be the basic parameters to judge that, okay, should I go for it? And secondly, how to prepare broadly for it?
Okay, so 3 parameters according to me for sociology are: 1, I recommend everybody to just open the last year question paper and just to see them, just broadly. You do not need to know the topic, but even if for 1 or 2 questions you feel like you would want to answer it, it will help. Like I remember in 2019 when I opened the paper, I saw Me Too movement. So that was one question that told me I can write it even without knowing too much.
Right.
So the idea is to see question papers and think, will I be interested to read it and interested to answer a question if that came from that area. The second is to see the UPSC annual report that comes every year, and it gives a very good indicator about number of people who are applying and number of people who are making it through them qualifying. So that ratio is a very good parameter according to me, which all students must consider. And please see it for 2-3 years. Do not take a 1-year trend of it. That also helps. And the third is about guidance. I believe it is very important for any student who's not coming from a humanities background, if they're taking a humanities subject, to have certain level of guidance. So if they see some coaching material available, or if they think there is available ample amount of test series that are there, that can be one more parameter for them to consider it. And coming to my broad strategy, so here I happened, because I was working, I happened to take an online foundation course of sociology, and using those notes, I built upon it with a lot of test series, topper copies and topper notes that came over the last 2-3 years. Every attempt I would see the topper of that year and build on my notes.
And keep value adding to it.
Keep value adding to it.
Right. Very correctly said. And there is 3 continuous days of test during the mains exam. So what would be your suggestion about letting the body and mind cope up properly? Because I think physical endurance is also important there.
So for that, sir, I think 2-3 things that people can do is, one is to talk to friends or family, because they kind of help you stay grounded and kind of think of it as an examination. More or less, sometimes we play it as something more than that. So that is one. The second is to walk or to do physical activity towards the end of the night. Like while you're reading, if you have paper notes, please walk and read, because at the end of the day, you should become tired and you should just fall asleep at 9:30, 10. You shouldn't extend beyond that. That happens by the time we finish the 3 papers, like GS2. When we go for GS3, we are sleeping that night.
Right.
But the initial part of it, just walk or physical activity to some extent. You're doing both, like you should feel like you've done enough. And the third thing is soothing music. That is something that helped me. I recommend that to people, that they could listen to something.
Correct. Same methods before the prelims exam for anxiety control, because I see I get a lot of distress calls at times in the evenings of prelims exam.
So I'm someone who has dealt with anxiety for prelims and all. So one thing that I did was I used to have voice notes over a long period of time that I would record and then listen to it just that one day before. And I would cut the entire social media. I would put my phone on airplane for that one whole week and not take anything. No messages, no calls and everything.
Right.
And I would replay the voice messages, which normally used to be, I worked hard for 350 days. Or this is a matter of an examination. I have prepared enough. I have read these books so many number of times. I have attempted so many papers.
Right.
I have analyzed. So some of these are about what effort we have given. It is not about the result at all. So I recommend people to find their own ways on what works for them.
Right. But yes, correct. I mean, at least infusing yourself with your own self-induced memories is also a good idea. No doubt. Thanks a lot, Jahnavi. It was very good talking to you. I'm sure your suggestions will help the students. Please give your suggestions if you would like us to tell you something more on the Toppers Talk. Thank you, Jahnavi. It was lovely having you here.
Thank you so much, sir.